Today you'll find out about a turn-of-the-century snake oil salesman who lied to US Congress about how awesome his terrible plane was. But first, a word from our friends at Finimize. Finimize is a brilliant new app that shares a wealth of financial news and advice so that you can take advantage of stocks and money markets and all of that financy stuff that your friends are always talking about. Now maybe you're thinking, look Simon, I don't know anything about finances. I thought APR was just an abbreviation for the month of April until about 2 weeks ago. No problem though, Finimize wants to be your own personal financial advisor and it's giving you all the tools you need to invest confidently and intelligently. That is good. They explain everything in regular English that regular people like you and I can understand. Personally, I like their daily brief like a lot of you guys. I'm often very, very busy talking into a camera and telling strangers about random stuff that happened 900 years ago. I don't always have time to track every little bit of market movement. Finimize does that for me in a little daily section, and it's available as a text article or in audio form that you can just listen to when you're up to whatever, getting ready in the morning, taking a shower, whatever. It's also got these cool packs that offer in-depth profiles on companies and industries that you can study before making an investment decision, plus premium insights that break down market opportunities as they happen. Right now, you guys can get a 7-day free trial and 20% off the cost of the premium yearly subscription by clicking the link in the description below, and that 7-day trial is free. Cancel it anytime you want and you won't be charged anything. So if your money is not working for you and you want to change that, or you just want to give yourself a crash course in finance and investing, check out our friends at Finimize and on to today's video. The history of aviation is filled with truly terrible aircraft. For every Sopwith Camel, there was a Spad SA, which placed the gunner precariously in front of the propeller to clear his field of fire. For every Spitfire, there was the Boulton Paul Defiant, a World War II turret fighter based on outdated World War I tactics. For every Boeing 747, there was a Bristol Brabazon, a giant white elephant designed by committee and obsolete long before it was completed. And for every Messerschmitt 262, there was the Me-163 Comet, a rocket fighter so dangerous it killed far more of its own pilots than it did enemy ones. But in the pantheon of awful aircraft, one stands head and shoulders above the rest. The Christmas Bullet, a machine made terrible not because of human error, rushed design, bureaucracy, or the steady march of technology, but because its creator was among the most shameless, audacious charlatans in American history. William Whitney Christmas was born on September 1, 1865 in Warrenton, North Carolina. He attended St. John's Military Academy, the University of Virginia, and George Washington University, earning a Master in the Arts before switching to a career in medicine. Though throughout his life he styled himself as Dr. Christmas, there is no evidence that he ever obtained a formal medical degree. In any event, his medical career was short-lived, for sometime in the early 1900s he abandoned his practice to enter the brand new field of aviation. Christmas supposedly built and flew his first aircraft in 1908, but claimed he was forced to burn it in order to protect the top-secret design. Though no evidence of this machine's existence has ever been found, in 1909 Christmas did patent a design that he dubbed the Red Bird, a direct copy of an aircraft called the Red Wing, built by telephone inventor Alexander Graham Bell's Aerial Experimentation Association. Though again, there is no evidence this aircraft was ever built or flown, soon thereafter Christmas set out in search of business partners with which to launch his own aircraft company. On October 26, 1909, Christmas incorporated the Christmas Aeroplane Company in Washington, D.C., along with investors Creed M. Fulton, Lester C. McLeod, and Thomas W. Buckley. While over the next 8 years, the trio would pour thousands of dollars into the company, variously renamed the Durham Christmas Aeroplane Sales and Exhibition Company and later the Cantilever Aero Company, no aircraft were ever built, though on December 5, 1915, Christmas published an article in the New York Times in which he claimed to have sold 11 battle cruisers to Britain and France. Finally, in 1917, Fulton, McLeod, and Buckley left the partnership in disgust. Undaunted, Christmas managed to convince brothers Henry and Alfred McCory, who ran a brokerage firm in New York, to invest in the company. That same year, America entered the Great War. Sensing an opportunity, Christmas paid a visit to the struggling Continental Aircraft Company of Amityville, Long Island, and laid out a series of advanced designs, including a single-seat Scout and a 3-place fighting machine. In a truly bizarre move, Christmas pitched these designs as part of an audacious plan to fly into German territory and kidnap Kaiser Wilhelm II, thereby forcing Germany to capitulate. Desperate for contracts, Continental accepted Christmas's proposal and assigned Vincent Bernelli as chief designer. To power his aircraft, variously known as the Christmas Bullet, Cantilever Aero Bullet, or Christmas Strutless Biplane, Christmas contacted New York Senator James Wadsworth, who convinced the US Army to lend Christmas one of its experimental Liberty 6 engines. The engine was provided on the condition it only be used for ground tests and that the Army inspect the aircraft before its maiden flight, conditions Christmas promptly ignored. Meanwhile, back at the factory, Benelli was growing increasingly concerned with Christmas's unorthodox design choices. Inexplicably, the good doctor insisted that the aircraft's fuselage be constructed of steel and wood veneer, resulting in an aircraft that weighed an astonishing 2,100 pounds, nearly twice as much as comparable aircraft of the era. But even more concerning were the machine's wings. While at the time most biplane wings had to be braced with struts for structural rigidity, Christmas insisted these were unnecessary and that the wings should be allowed to flex freely, almost like a bird's wings when they flap. Worse still, the wings were constructed of short sections welded together, creating joints that, in Benelli's words, could be snapped over your knee and were so heavy they had to be winched onto the fuselage. Benelli tried desperately to get the design changed, but Christmas refused to budge, and the first bullet was completed to his original specifications. However, by this time, the Great War had already ended, putting an end to Christmas's harebrained kidnapping plan. Unsurprisingly, Christmas had great difficulty finding a pilot willing to test fly the bullet, with candidate after candidate taking one look at the machine before, we imagine, letting out a giant nope and just walking away. Eventually, however, Christmas convinced airmail pilot Cuthbert Mills to get behind the controls. The maiden flight, which took place sometime in January 1919, started out promisingly, with the bullet rising gracefully off the airfield and steadily climbing to 3,000 feet. Suddenly, however, the wings ripped off the fuselage and sent Mills spiraling to the ground, killing him instantly. An article in Flight magazine published a month later neatly summed up the underlying cause of the crash. It would seem that such construction would result in a low factor of safety, but the designer claims a safety factor of 7 throughout. Christmas, unfazed by the accident, proceeded to cover up Mills's death and ran a newspaper ad claiming that the bullet had achieved a speed of 197 miles per hour over Central Park, Long Island, an event apparently witnessed by Army Air Corps Colonel Ernest Harmon. Then, with characteristic audacity, he returned to the Army and, despite having destroyed their brand new engine, somehow convinced them to lend him a propeller for his new prototype. The second bullet was displayed at Madison Square Garden on March 8, 1919, before being sent to the testing field. Shortly before its maiden flight, it was realized that the propeller was too long and dug into the ground, prompting Christmas to enter the hangar and cut down the offending blades with a saw. Predictably, the second test flight also ended in a crash, resulting in the death of pilot Lieutenant Allington Joyce Jolly. Nonetheless, Christmas and McCory brothers appeared in the May 1919 issue of Vanity Fair, with Christmas describing the bullet as the safest, easiest plane in the world. But even Christmas must have realized that he could not go on killing pilots indefinitely, and abandoned the project before the bullet could be formally evaluated by the US Army. Instead, he set out to sell some of his 300 aeronautical patents to the US government, appearing in 1923 before the House Select Committee on Expenditures in the War Department. In his testimony, Christmas made all manner of outlandish claims, including that his company was being swamped with orders from Europe, that he had received a $1 million offer to rebuild Germany's air force, and that the prototype bullets had indeed flown successfully, but that the negatives had been destroyed by the government as part of a conspiracy against him. Then, in an astounding display of Christmas's sheer audacity and silver-tongued charm, he billed the Army $100,000 for the use of his revolutionary flexible wing design, and the Army paid up. William Christmas would move on to a long succession of ventures and schemes, eventually ending up as vice president of the General Development Corporation, a Miami-based real estate firm. He died a wealthy man in 1960 at the age of 95. During his brief foray into aviation, Christmas had accomplished something almost unheard of. He had swindled his business partners in the US government, built one of the worst aircraft in history, and was responsible for the death of 2 pilots, yet still, somehow, he managed to come out on top. His is a story of ambition and skullduggery that could have only taken place in the lawless landscape of American aviation. And now for a bonus fact. Another aircraft that frequently tops lists as the worst ever is the Fisher XP75 Eagle. Designed as a long-range bomber escort by the Fisher Body Division of General Motors in 1942, the Eagle was a Frankenstein's monster of an aircraft, cobbled together from the tail of a Douglas SBD Dauntless torpedo bomber, the wings of a Curtiss P-40 Warhawk fighter, and the undercarriage of a Vought F-4U Corsair fighter. Unusually, the twin V12 engines were mounted behind the pilot and connected to the propellers through a long drive shaft running under the cockpit floor. The idea behind this hybrid construction was to reduce costs and speed up production by using components from already proven aircraft. But while the P-75 was touted by GM as a wonder plane with incredible range and rate of climb, in testing the Eagle proved to be something of a turkey. Its engine was underpowered and prone to overheating. The aircraft's rearward center of gravity made it unstable, and its undersized wings and control surfaces gave it poor handling characteristics. Development dragged on for 2 years, and while many of these early teething problems were worked out by September 1944, by this time the Eagle had already been surpassed in its intended escort role by production aircraft such as the North American P-51 Mustang and Lockheed P-38 Lightning, and production was halted after only 6 P-75s had been completed. While the Eagle may have seemed like a terrible idea right from the start, there was method to GM's madness. The company's conversion from peacetime automobile production to wartime aircraft production had taken Herculean effort, its 5 Eastern automotive plants having been torn down and rebuilt essentially overnight. Aircraft manufacturing also had proven to be very different from automobile manufacturing, and it had taken years of dedicated work to iron out all the kinks in the assembly process. By 1942, GM's factories were at full capacity, producing aircraft like the Grumman TBF Avenger torpedo bomber and the 4F-4 Wildcat fighter and the North American B-25 Mitchell medium bomber. In that same year, Boeing finished development of its sophisticated new B-29 Superfortress bomber, stoking fears among GM's management that their factories would soon be forced to produce them. Wishing to avoid a repeat of their previous woes with tooling up new production lines, GM hatched a clever scheme. By agreeing to take on the Army Air Force's requirement for a long-range escort fighter, they were able to create a high-profile priority project that would exempt them from full-scale B-29 production. And it worked. While the Fisher Body Division did produce subcomponents such as engine nacelles and tail assemblies, GM factories were never called upon to produce full B-29s. Thus, for all of its inherent faults, in the end the P-75 Eagle actually accomplished exactly what it was designed to. And so I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do smash that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out our friends at Finimize as well. Link below. And thank you for watching.